Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Extra Lap Podcast. Today, we're very lucky enough to have with us Cal Poly runner John Lester. John, how are you today?
Doing well, man. Doing well. How are you?
I'm doing great, thank you. John, you're
Yeah,
coming
of course.
up, I think your first NCAA run for at least track, if I'm not mistaken, right? Oh, sorry, what did you just say?
I didn't catch that.
Oh,
You cut out for a sec there. Sorry about that.
you're coming off like your first NCAA run, right? Like in indoor at least for NCAAs?
Yes. Yeah. So that was last year. Yeah. So technically, yes. It's been a while though.
Oh,
Um,
oh, but like, I don't even. How does it work though? Like working up to a moment like that and getting ready for that, or even looking forward to outdoor and getting ready to try to make it again.
yeah. So it's one of those things that's definitely like really difficult, especially in indoors. Like, one of the things that I was told pretty much right away, even as a 147 guy out of high school, was like one of the hardest meets to make is the NCAA championships, especially in indoors, because it requires that you have a top 16 seed time, and so for me it took about a year and a half to get to that point, and I ran 146.93 at the last meet, like before like the NCAA, like whatever the cutoff to make it, and I think I was like number 8 or 9, and that was that moment was like predicated by a lot of patience and a lot of hard work and support, from the people around me. So it's definitely like nothing to sneeze at. Like for the guys that do make it, like I always look at that and I'm just like, that was like that took a lot of diligence.
Mhm.
So yeah, I have a lot of respect for it.
Yeah, and as you gear up, what's going on like training wise? How are you getting ready for this upcoming outdoor season?
Yeah, so it's a very similar picture to my senior spring back in 2021 when they pushed the Olympic trials back a year. Um, I broke my foot my first week here at Cal Poly, and so I was out for 8 9 weeks, and I've just started getting back into workouts. So the next 8 weeks or so are going to be pretty much just dedicated to getting into 146 145 shape.
Mhm.
And if I can make a trial standard, that would be phenomenal. If not, there's I'm sort of planning to just race into the summer and just see what I can put down. But I have a long-term vision with the coach here and with the program here. So it's obviously I'm fortunate that I had that happen, but you know, um, how I'm gearing up for the trials looks actually quite similar to what I was doing in high school, which is really just kind of doing very hard workouts for the next 6 to 8 weeks.
Yeah, and for like a race like the trials where you're kind of attacking a number, how does that like mentally just work? Because
Yeah, I think a lot of it happens in training, so like when you're running something like 146, for example, like you've run 52 in practice, you've run 51 in practice, or at the very least like you've run some like 23, 24 second 200s and you're comfortable doing that. So when those races go out in 50, 51, you're it's definitely not fun, but you're ready to like hang on and push through to 600 and just see what you can put together, because the 800 is really just a long deceleration, and it really just comes down to like how mentally ready are you, I guess, to kind of handle like pretty much sprinting for uh 800 meters comfortably. And I think that's really the challenge a lot of people struggle with, is the concept, I think, of like sprinting, but then also like comfortably sprinting and like convincing yourself that you are comfortable. But it's muscle memory by the time you're doing it. So there's not a whole lot of thought, I guess, like going into a race or during the race. It's just sort of, you know, it's just already in your system, I guess.
Mhm. And as you like do the 800, you're a sub 4 minute miler. So how do you like get the speed needed to compete in the 800?
Yeah, so that was actually a struggle during my time at Stanford. There was not as much speed as I would have liked. I'm someone who responds, I think, well to that stimulus. So I was really fit, like you know, in the 8K. Yeah, I think I ran 24:40 my freshman year, and then something around the same thing my sophomore year, which was like a fitness I had never gotten even remotely close to in high school. So you know, breaking 4 was kind of like that wasn't really with any speed work. Coach Santos did a really good job getting us into just excellent aerobic shape.
Mhm.
Um, so getting down into like, you know, the 146 range, I actually Coach Santos let me do he let me like write a couple of like my own workouts a couple weeks out from that last meet going into NCAAs. And those were just basically like 800 simulations. So like something like you know, 5 by 200 at like 25 seconds with you know, like on the minute. So if it was a 25-second 200, I would have 35 seconds rest. Um, and that was the workout. So it's really short. It's 5 minutes of work. Um, but just getting that like stimulus and getting that speed, um, feeling comfortable, was what kind of got me from sort of running 148s off of like strength to 146. Um, so yeah.
Yeah, and like in a more tactical race, when he goes to against someone who's more of like a 400, 800 guy, how do you use that strength to your advantage?
Yeah, I mean, if I know that I'm going up against someone who is like say like a 45, 46 second 400 runner, like I'm gonna let them do the work up front.
Mhm.
Because I, you know, those guys usually go out quick. Because you know, 50, 51 is a lot more comfortable for them than it is for me. And then, you know, the last 300 is usually where like, you know, that's where the 800-mile guys show up. And so that would be someone like me, I guess. Uh, but if I'm against like, you know, like I remember when I ran 146, like I was racing, I think Elliot Cook, um, maybe Nathan Green. He might have been in that race. But those are more like, you know, my pure milers. And I knew that like if it was the race that I wanted to run, I needed to get out hard. And so I took it from the gun. Um, so, you know, it sometimes just depends on, I guess, like who's in the field, maybe what it feels like in that first 200. And then other times it's just sort of how you're positioned, you know, because you just want to find the rail as soon as, like, at least in my opinion, you want to find the rail as soon as you can and just try to get somewhat comfortable and in a good position to move, you know, early on. So it can be, it can be kind of variable. You just have to be kind of like open to, I guess, leveraging the situation as best you can, like to your strengths.
Yeah, and you said you're coming off like a little bit of an injury with the 9 weeks off. How do you like
Yeah.
just be patient with that fitness and knowing like it will come, so you just got to be ready?
I think a lot of that's based on experience. I don't know that I would be confident if I hadn't done it before.
Mhm.
Um, I've had my fair share of injuries in my career, and you know, I've come back from it pretty strong, and so I know what it takes in cross training. I know what it takes in the weight room to get in a position to, you know, have a successful like training block and season. So there's that, and then I think the other component is, you know, the environment I'm in here is extremely like positive and supportive, and you know, like Coach Van Hoy, you know, he didn't hesitate at all in terms of like, you know, just rolling with it. You know, because I was a new transfer and I got hurt like when I first got here, and instead of panicking. He was just him and the staff were just sort of like, okay, what can we do in this time off to get you to be a stronger runner? And so I've been in the weight room 3, 4 times a week, and I've been cross training for an hour a day at least. And just, I've been working with a chiro, I've been working with a physio, all that good stuff. So there's a lot of support here to get in a position to mentally and physically be ready for the challenge ahead. So I'm drawing on past experience, and I'm also really well supported here.
Yeah, and what goes into your cross training? Like, how do you cross train?
Um, so for me, like, uh, it doesn't matter so much like what I'm doing. I prefer, if I can help it, like the arc trainer or the elliptical. But for me, like, I respond best to just like short bursts of like really high intensity stimulus. So let's just say like I'm biking. Like if I'm biking for an hour, I'm gonna bike for an hour and my heart rate's gonna be like 170 to 180, and I'm gonna hold it there. Um,
Mhm,
or sometimes it might be longer than that. But if it's longer than that, maybe it's more like 160.
mhm,
But generally, I try to keep it like somewhere between like the 30-minute to an hour range. And whether I'm swimming, biking, elliptical, or doing the arc trainer, it's like it's for me, it's based on heart rate and it's based on effort, and I try to keep it very intense. And I usually come out of that pretty fit. And it's not as much of a load on my body just because there's no impact.
mhm. And what went into your decision to go to Cal Poly and like just run for there?
Yeah, yeah. Definitely a lot. Um, I it's I, I wanted to transfer from Stanford actually when I made nationals. Around that time, like that winter, I was thinking about leaving. And it's there's a lot of reasons.
Mhm,
But without, I guess, getting into the sort of I guess negative, because Stanford was a very positive experience for me. Like I loved the school. I made great, like, hopefully lifelong friends there.
mhm,
But it was a difficult program to, I think, flourish in my position. I didn't really have training partners in the 800.
mhm.
And the training was catered more towards like a 5K, 10K cohort. Um, and that was, I thought I was someone who could handle that because I value education quite a lot, and I was a bit of a nerd in school, and like it just sort of worked out where like in the year since I started thinking about it, um, academically, Cal Poly was appealing for its grad program. Stanford didn't have a grad program in psychology. I would have to go into a PhD program, and I didn't want to do that. And I wasn't interested any longer in law school, which was the primary reason for really staying at Stanford as an undergrad, because it would be attractive to the law program I wanted to apply to.
Mhm.
So once the academic side and the running side together sort of stopped making sense for me, the decision became pretty easy. And the two schools that I reached out to when I entered the portal were Washington and Cal Poly. And those were the only two, because I'd spent so much time sort of thinking about that decision. And really the only thing that actually prevented me from entering the portal sooner was financial concerns. But I was lucky to have some, people in the running world essentially assure me that, like, I would be someone who a coach would like take a chance on, even with my like injury history and that sort of thing, because that was my primary concern. Um, and I was lucky that Coach Van Hoy did, and he's probably one of the best, if not the best, 800, 1500 coach in the country. So I got pretty lucky.
Yeah, and Cal Poly is really interesting because like I feel like at least over the last 2 or 3 years, it's really just gotten more and more like just deep and like the recruits that are coming in are obviously getting better and better. So what is it like just contributing to that program?
Yeah, I feel like, I'm hopeful that I'm here for a long time. Like, I want to stay here through the 28 Olympics, and maybe, have because I want to continue to train under Van Hoy.
Mhm.
And what's exciting to me is the program, like you said, yeah, it's just trending upward so quickly. Like I had my high school teammate Aiden, who didn't run 800s in high school, too much. I don't even know if he broke 2 minutes. But he ran 146 like 4 times last year under Van Hoy, and there was that element. I kind of had a close connection, and I was able to kind of get some, I guess, inside info on what Van Hoy was doing and what the program was like. Um, but like the other thing too, right, is like the the program's trending in that direction, and it's everybody trending in that direction. And I think like having that happening like on a systemic level, like not just a few standouts being like, you know, getting better. That's like, to me, the biggest indicator of like a healthy culture, which the culture here has blown me away. Like the people here are incredible. Um, and the work ethic has been phenomenal. So I think like, you know, when you see something like that, and if people are considering schools, I think one of the best indicators of a program that you want to be a part of, if you want to get better, is a program where truly everyone is getting better. Because like these people, like when I showed up my first week, like they were outworking me in the weight room, and I thought I was a hard worker. So it was like I had to catch up. Like I had to, there were parts of like my basically like thought process, like how I thought about like weight training or like stretching or like core and like all those little things. Um, I had formed some bad habits at Stanford, and here it's completely different. And so, I think being a part of that, like, you know, I would say I'm becoming a part of it, but as I came in, like I was really just benefiting from it. Like I was just like they took me under their wing, if anything, and I've sort of been built up by the people around me. So um, I'm excited, like going forward, like if I can be a part of it and a positive influence, like they have been on me, that would be awesome, you know?
Mhm.
So
Yeah, and what does like the average week look like for you at Cal Poly? Like workout wise and just mileage wise.
yeah, I can't really speak to mileage yet, because I'm really only running like maybe 12 to 15 miles a week right now,
Mhm.
because I'm really only running like every other day. Um, but I'm in the weight room um 4 times a week. Two of those times like are with they're like one-on-one with our weights coach, and that's just like, it's a lot of like plyometric stuff. If I am doing weights, it's like more for balance and just like, core and just like getting explosive, like just getting like those neural connections back. Because being in a boot for so long, it just kind of threw me off in terms of like balance and strength. Um, and then, 2 other days of the week, Tuesday, Friday, I'm in the weight room with the team, and we practice and work out in the mornings at 8 a.m. Every day but Wednesday, and Saturday morning. So, we meet 5 days a week at 8 a.m., either for practice or workout. And then in the afternoons we lift.
Yeah. And what's like the biggest difference would you say between high school training versus college training?
I think high school training, like it's at least for me, like here, I would say it's not too much different. Here at Cal Poly, like the work I'm doing here is parallel to what I was doing under Coach Ozzy at Amador, where it's just, it's a good combination of like, slightly lower mileage, a little more speed work, a little more, you know, uh it's more focused on drills and like less on mileage. And the workouts here are not like super high volume. They're usually like high quality, like high intensity. Um, but at Stanford, like, it was different. Like it was an adjustment for me. It was a little bit higher mileage, it was a little more volume. We would have like on Wednesdays we'd have a middle long run, and then on Sunday we'd have a long run. So there were more runs dedicated to like developing the aerobic side of things. And so, depending on the program, you know, the experiences can be different. If I were to come here, like out of high school, I would tell you it's not too much different. But going to Stanford, it was. Um, I would say like between the two, though, the biggest like difference is like running for me kind of came second to everything, whereas here it's very much equal. Like I treat running. I mean, you kind of have to. It's a little bit a larger part of your life. All your friends, your team, sometimes like your girlfriends, like they're gonna be people like on your team. It's like a family. So I would say that's like the biggest difference is running just becomes a larger part of your life. And that's not for everyone, but I definitely enjoy that.
Yeah, and what are you doing when you're not running?
Usually like I'm I'm a big reader. I read a lot. And obviously like I go to classes and school is definitely a solid part of my day. But I usually like spend my time like just like watching movies or reading. Here, I didn't do this at Stanford as much, but here I do a lot of cooking as well, and just like hanging out with people and exploring the coast. They have great beaches here, so I'm a big fan of like now that I can walk again, I'm a big fan of hiking. So I've been doing a lot of that. But yeah, I'm not like I don't do too much outside of like kind of just like standard, just like chill, hanging out with friends type stuff outside of running in school.
Yeah, what's the most recent book you've read?
Sapiens by Noah Yuval Harari. I recommend that to everyone. It's a good one.
Run. And if you were not to be a runner, what sport would you do?
Ooh, that's a good one. I think I would do ultimate frisbee.
Ultimate.
In middle,
That's
yeah, yeah, I think I would do ultimate frisbee. I was on a high school team in middle school. They were nice and they let us play, and that was so much fun. Like we would play beach ultimate and like sometimes on grass as well. And I loved nothing more than just like chasing down a disc. So I definitely I'll go down to Santa Barbara sometimes and I'll meet like I have a friend at Santa Cruz who plays ultimate, and then I have a friend at Santa Barbara who plays, and sometimes we'll meet up and we'll just, you know, I'll like watch his tournaments and they'll let us throw the disc around a little bit. So um yeah,
yeah.
that
And
would that would be a cool like alternate reality, I guess.
yeah, I always ask this question. I've never had ultimate frisbee. I've heard golf, I've heard finger skating. I've never
Oh damn.
hmm?
Who said figure skating? I'm interested.
uh oh my gosh. Jeez, I forget it was a very early episode, but I do forget who.
Okay,
I've heard it all. I've heard every single one. But ultimate frisbee. I think that completed the circle right there.
right on. Cool.
And the last
That's
question
awesome.
I got for you is what advice would you give to like a high school runner?
Um, you know, I would say enjoy it. Like really take in like the process. It is the best part of the sport. Um, we can talk like all day about, oh, like, this race or this time, like those were so awesome. This was really cool. But like at the end of the day, like I'm getting up every morning and I'm cross training or I'm hitting the weight room because like I love those things. Like I love getting better. And I think like, you know, your relationship with the sport should be predicated on that. And whatever you choose to do next with it, whether it's like running college or whatever, um, try to find a spot where the process is most enjoyable for you, because I think the rest takes care of itself. And I kind of wish I'd internalized that message a little sooner, because I think it would have meant that a lot of the times I should have really enjoyed, like in training and in racing, I could have enjoyed a lot more. And so, running isn't forever, but for the time it is, definitely, you know, enjoy the wind in your hair and the sunshine and your friends, because, it's a really special thing, and yeah, so
Yeah.
that's what I would say.
Word. Right on.
Yeah,
Well, John, thank you so much for the interview, and thank you for
of
everyone for
course.
till our next lap. See ya.